Soil texture test determines the percentage of sand, clay, and silt in your soil, and thus telling you what type of soil it is. This test is very easy to do, and all you need is a transparent jar. You can take a glass jar or a plastic one. I am using a plastic one here. The only condition that the jar should satisfy is that it should be cylindrical in shape. The width of the jar should be same everywhere from bottom to top, and it should have a lid that fits well. First thing to do is to fill up the soil in the jar. I've tried to remove as many lumps from the soil as possible, but if something is left, it will slowly get mixed into the water. Fill up the soil up to about 2/3 of the jar. Now I'm adding some water to it. Fill up enough water, but leave some gap on top. This gap will allow the soil and water to move when you shake the jar so that they mix together properly. Okay, now it's time to shake our cocktail. And this needs to be done really well. The soil should mix really well with the water. Some bits got stuck to the lid, and I'm going to give it another nice shake. So after giving a proper shake, when you have placed it on the table, wait for 10 seconds and look at the level of sediments at the bottom and put a mark over there. That is your sand content. Then leave the jar to rest for about 12 to 13 hours or maybe a day. I have left it for 12 hours. And now I can see a clear gradation of size of the particles from bottom to top. You'll also be able to make out a clear divide between clay and rest of the soil. So put a mark over there to differentiate clay from rest of it. It may not be so easy to differentiate sand and silt sometimes, and that's why we had put a mark for sand just 10 seconds after mixing the soil and the water. So now we have all the levels marked. We have marked the level of sand, we have marked the level of clay, and the portion between bottom of clay and top of sand is actually a silt. And yes, the things that are floating on top here are nothing but organic matter. And it's a good idea to put a mark for that too. After putting the marks, take the measurement with a scale and note it down. So now we've got measurements of the levels of sand, silt, clay, and organic matter. To calculate the percentage of sand, silt, and clay, first we need to get the total amount of sand, silt, and clay. In our case, we had 5 centimeters of sand, 3.5 centimeters of silt, and 1.5 centimeters of clay. So in total, we've got 10 centimeters of soil. Sand percentage is computed by dividing the sand value with the total and multiplying with 100. And similarly, we get the silt and the clay percentage also. Now you can see for the soil that I used, I've got a 50% sand, a 35% silt, and 15% clay. And before we move on to see what kind of soil it is, let's also have a look at the percentage of organic matter in a soil. And this is how I calculate my organic matter content. And it turns out that I have approximately 5% of organic matter in the soil I tested. This is the soil triangle that will tell you the type of your soil. Now to find out where does our soil lie in this triangle, let's mark out our sand, silt, and clay percentages. I'm marking sand at 50%, silt at 35%, and clay at 15%. And the point of intersection is where I should be looking. So for the soil I tested, I got a medium loamy soil. It's a borderline loam, but loam anyway. And with 5% organic matter, I would say it's a good soil. So that's it. That is how you test your soil at home, with just a jar and some water. Soil science is a vast subject. What I have tried to do in this session is to give you a working idea of it. But one thing is very evident, that it takes years to build good soil. Does that mean it's going to take a long time to build your potting mix? We'll find out in next session.